Dear children, today we are going to start Baji Prabhu, which was written by Sri Aurobindo. Before we go to Baji Prabhu, let us first know, though we already are aware, of who Sri Aurobindo was. I will give you a small introduction. Sri Aurobindo or Aurobindo Ghosh was born on 15th of August 1872 in Calcutta, which is now Kolkata. His father was Krishnadhan Ghosh, an assistant surgeon, and his mother, Swarnlata Devi, was a prominent figure in the Brahmo Samaj. Aurobindo Ghosh was sent to the English-speaking Loreto House boarding school in Darjeeling, along with his siblings, to develop their proficiency in the English language. He studied for the Indian Civil Service at King's College at Cambridge. On his return to India, Sri Aurobindo took up various civil service works. He became increasingly involved in national politics and was drawn to the revolutionary movement in Bengal. Eventually, he was arrested in the aftermath of a bomb outrage which was linked to his organization. This was followed by a highly public trial where he faced charges of treason. Now, since Sri Aurobindo could only be convicted and imprisoned for writing articles against the British rule in India, he was acquitted when no concrete evidence could be provided to validate his crime. During his stint at the prison, Sri Aurobindo had mystical and spiritual experiences. He then left politics to pursue spirituality. A profound life came to an end when he breathed his last on 5th December 1950 at Pondicherry, his ashram. He was 78 years old. Now, as we can understand that Sri Aurobindo was born and brought up and functioning at a time when India's freedom struggle was at its peak. You can see that Baji Prabhu, that is your text, was composed in the year 1909 and 1910. It spanned about a year. At this point of time, again, as I repeat, the freedom struggle was at its peak. And there were some people of India who were involved in the freedom struggle, but they were involved actively at the front. For example, Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. But some others, like Sri Aurobindo, Tagore, what they did was they inspired the people of the country through their writings. They inspired them to have the fire of patriotism or nationalism burn in their hearts, so that not everyone is a born soldier, but we can, even as civilians, contribute in order to make a better country. So, for those who could not be there at the front and fighting, they could be inspired through literary work and influential writing to rebel against the Britishers in any which way that could be possible. Now, in this context, Sri Aurobindo wrote Baji Prabhu, which is a chronicle about the Battle of Pavankhand, where one general, that is Baji Prabhu Deshpande, had become a martyr in order to save his motherland. Now, what was or where was the Battle of Pavankhand? Where had it taken place? The Battle of Pavankhand, as you can see, took place on 13th of July 1660 at a mountain pass, and it was in the vicinity or near the fort of Vishalgarh. Now, what was happening was that it was a battle that took place between Shivaji, and at that point of time, Adil Shah II was in power. He was the king of Bijapur, the Bijapur Sultanate. Now, for several times, this Bijapur Sultanate or Adil Shah and his forces had been defeated by Shivaji. So he did not like that. What he did was he went and formed a coalition. Like even today we have coalition governments. He formed a coalition with the Mughal army as well as some of the Rajputs who favored the Mughals. And with a combined force, they attacked Shivaji's army. Now, at that point of time, Shivaji was trapped in the fort of Panhala, and Shivaji was desperate to escape from the fort. And then finally, one day, when the people his captors, when they went looking for the fort for food, Shivaji actually escaped. And his second in command was Baji Prabhu Deshpande, and they escaped with an army of about 300 soldiers. But when it was discovered, and they were actually going to the fort of Vishalgarh, which I just mentioned previously, that this fort, that the Battle of Pavankin took place in the vicinity of the fort of Vishalgarh. So Shivaji was actually escaping from Panhala and was going to the fort of Vishalgarh, which was under the Marathas. So at a certain point in the journey in between, they realized that the combined army of the Bijapur Sultanate, the Mughals and the Rajput were hot on their heels. They were actually catching up, and the combined army was huge compared to the number that Shivaji and his men were, which was just a meager 300 people. So what happens is that Shivaji had to take a final decision. Being the king, the Chhatrapati, the person under whom so many people were dependent, on whom and under whose we say na Chhatra Chhaya. So Shivaji had to take a decision, and he put a certain number of men stationed in between, and he said that you people stay here, you fight the Mughal forces, and I will take the rest of them to Vishalgarh. Once I reach Vishalgarh safely, I will fire a cannon so that you can understand that I have reached Vishalgarh safely. And right after I put my people in safety in the fort of Vishalgarh, I will come back and join you. So, from your poem, I quote the lines. Shivaji says, the Bhosle names thee that is you, Baji, as what? As the commander now. In my absence, he takes off his turban, and as a mark of respect and as a mark of commandership, he puts it on Baji Prabhu's head. There is a beautiful white feather, the feather of the egret bird, and a diamond attached to that feather, and he puts it on the head of Baji Prabhu and says that I name thee Baji as the commander of the forces here. I speed to Raigarh and in 2 brief hours return. Stay with what force thy iron heart can hold. Say with what force thy iron heart can hold the passage till I come. So he says that I name you the commander, and I will go to Raigarh in the fort of Vishalgarh. I'll keep the people and I'll come back, and now you have to tell me. It's a huge responsibility. With an iron heart, like a brave heart, like a lion heart that you are, but please tell me, is it possible for you? Is it possible for you to hold this passage till I come back within, say, 2 hours? Obviously, Baji Prabhu agrees to this, and Shivaji decides to take the rest of the Marathas on to the destination at Vishalgarh, while Baji Prabhu stays back guarding the pass. Now, before we move ahead, we would like to know who exactly was Baji Prabhu Deshpande. Now, this photograph that you can see here is actually and the statue which is there in the vicinity of the fort of Panhala, where, as I had told you, that Shivaji was imprisoned and from where he had escaped. Basically, what happened was there was a man named Shiv Kashid who resembled Shivaji in appearance, and he had volunteered to dress like the Chhatrapati. And while Shivaji escaped on a dark, moonless night on 13th of July with his contingent troops, he got captured in Shivaji's stead. So Baji Prabhu Deshpande, he was a commander of the Maratha king, that is Chhatrapati Shivaji. And Chhatrapati Shivaji, we know, is the founder of the Maratha Empire. Baji Prabhu is actually a legend because he is linked with an important rear guard battle enabling the Chhatrapati Shivaji to escape from Panhala fort and reach Vishalgarh as we are discussing. Now, at this point, you would like to know what is a rear guard battle. Now, you must have heard in colloquial terms, we often say, it's all right during games and things like that. It's all right, you charge ahead, I got your back. So, what it means is that the main motive of Shivaji was to escape with his contingent and reach Vishalgarh. He had no desire or intention to leave a part of his forces at this particular point. But when it was discovered that they had, the Allied forces or the people at Panhala discovered that Shivaji had actually escaped and there was someone else, an impostor in his place, they were hot on his heels. So, here, what Baji Prabhu, along with his handful of men, does is that they say, they agree with Shivaji's decision that yes, you go ahead, we are going to guard you as you move ahead, as your horses are turned back, as your back is turned, and you are moving ahead towards Vishalgarh. We are going to guard this pass, we are going to hold back the army, and we are going to be there and assure you a safe passage. So that is what makes Baji Prabhu Deshpande a legendary figure. Now, coming back, this is the actual picture of that pass. So basically, this place, the Marathas, basically Maharashtra and the western coast, you have the Western Ghats there, which is a highland. You all know that. These highlands, they have ravines or passes in them, like the Thalghat Pass, Bodghat Pass, and there are many other passes. The Marathas were exceptional in guerrilla warfare. They used to be hidden in these mountainous regions. The Mughal army for a long time had been in conflict with the Marathas, but they could not capture them because the Marathas knew these passes, these mountains, like the back of their hands, and they could hide themselves in there and come up with surprise attacks. So they were masters at guerrilla warfare. So they chose this ravine, and it was very, very strategic as the ravine, as you can see, is very narrow and only a few soldiers could pass at one time. So if a handful of soldiers is passing, even if the opponent army comprises 12,000 or 10,000 people and my army has 300 people, but this pass, as you can see, this narrow pass will allow the passage of only say about 15 or 25 people at a time, and they can be easily slaughtered. So Baji Prabhu and his 300 men blocked this path and fought against more than 10,000 soldiers in this Ghorkin Pass for over 18 hours. So after this battle was over, when Shivaji came back, I mean, we will go back to the battle and discuss it in detail as much as you need. But here, since we are talking about the Ghodkin Pass, I would like to point out that this pass was subsequently named Pavankind, which means holy pass, by Shivaji in honor of the sacrifice that Baji Prabhu and his troops had made for their motherland. In fact, Pavankind in Marathi means, I mean, the Battle of Pavankind in Marathi means the Battle of the Sacred Pass. So this place became a sacred place. This place became a holy place because here a lot of blood was shed in the name of one's motherland. Now coming back, when once you open your book, you will see that these are the opening lines. Sri Aurobindo creates a dramatic scene of the battle, recreates, because he's not the one actually creating it, it had actually taken place, so he recreates. We have not been able to see it, but through his wonderful description, we can actually figure out what it looked like. And this landscape is actually the photograph of the Deccan landscape. And see how beautifully it matches with what the poet has written. The poet writes, "A noon of Deccan with its tyrant glare." Why tyrant? Because it is merciless. The sun shining on this is merciless. It will scorch anything. Oppressed the earth, the hills stood deep in haze, and sweltering athirst, the fields glared up, longing for water in the courses parched of streams long dead. So it means it is noon, the sun as it is at its highest position. The earth is scorched. As you can see, there is very less greenery here. Far away you can see the hills, but as you see, even in our own city, when we drive in the noon, at a distance things become hazy. So in this kind of a situation, the hills are also looking very hazy. Everything is thirsty for that one drop of rain or for the sun to set, when the cool, refreshing breeze of evening will bring some life, will infuse some coolness into the earth. The fields are also glaring up because, devoid of greenery, they are also parched and scorched. They long for the water, but all the rivers that were flowing on it are long dry, long dead, because they are seasonal rivers. They are gone. Nature and man alike, imprisoned by a bronze and brilliant sky, sought an escape from the wide trance of heat. So whether it is nature, that is the flora, fauna, or the people who were here, either hidden in the ravines waiting for the army, or an army of more than 10,000 that was charging through these landscapes, they were all scorched, and they all wanted everything to be over. If not the battle, at least the day to be over, when there would be some coolness, some life that would be given to them as a form of respite. So as I said, that Baji Prabhu, the commander of Shivaji, and his troop, they waited quietly in the ravine, while the Mughals, they charged. Now, there are many spellings of Mughal that you will see. We generally say Mughal, but in some old text, you will also find Mogul. Basically, Mughal, or this kind of a spelling, was written by the English people who came during the times of Jahangir and Shah Jahan. They started coming in here because they wanted to thwart the Portuguese trade that was going on, and they wanted also some power over India, because India was considered the land of milk and honey, and in fact India was one of the richest economies at that point of time. Now, I have personally read the chronicle of an Englishman who writes back to England that I don't know what to give these Indians, because we are so impoverished when we compare ourselves with them. They have everything. Instead of me offering them something, they offer me things and tell me to take things back to England. So, there we come back. The Mughal, they charge. The poet writes, the Mughal horsemen, as they rode with lances at the charge, the surf of steel above them and behind, as they recoiled or circled, where the footmen ran first and fired. So, as you can see, they have lances in their hands, and in that brilliant sun that shone in the noon, these surfs of steel, they were shining and sparkling vengefully, mercilessly, bloodthirsty the shine was. And these people tried a lot. They tried to charge in front, they tried to circle the ravine, they sometimes retreated and sat quietly hoping that the Marathas would expose themselves. The footmen were always running in the front, and the cavalry or the people on the horses, they came from the back. They were the second force of attack. Now, obviously, as the Mughals, the Bijapur Sultanate army, the Rajputs, and the Mughals combined, these odd 10,000 odd soldiers who were there, as they were coming here, the Adil Shahi army, the Marathas were quietly waiting for them to make some mistake. But finally, what happened was, when but fighting was going on. Yes, it's not that none of them were exposed to each other. Fighting was going on. The Baji Prabhu Deshpande, he and his men, they blocked the path of the pursuers and made a determined defense against them. And as the fierce fight went on, Baji Prabhu was finally, he said that now the entire army should charge, because he believed that they would rather be dead than living, but they would hold the slope. They would hold the conquered slope. Eventually, Baji Prabhu got severely wounded, but he carried on fighting. He was such a brave person. He carried on fighting, and he fought relentlessly, and he was standing and fighting, and he only lay down when he heard the cannon shot. If you remember that Shivaji had said that I would reach Vishalgarh and I would then fire a cannon shot. At that point of time, you will know that I have actually reached my destination, right? So, by that time, it was such a bloody battle that one Maratha chronicler or a writer, he describes this by saying that the valleys of Vishalgarh were painted in red due to the enemy's blood. So, Baji Prabhu had actually managed to slay thousands of the opponent army, and of course sustaining huge losses of his own army. And then once finally, at a point of time, you see, when even an underdog is winning, for example, you can see that in a match, suppose there's a new team who comes and playing against an established team, something happens, some miracle happens, and the established team or the team is constantly losing their wickets. So what happens at that point of time, this experienced team is also shaken, and they think, oh my god, what is going on, and they go into defense. It is exactly the same thing. The Adil Shahi army, they were very, very confident. They thought that, all right, we are 10,000 plus 12,000 people, and these are just a handful of 300 people. We are going to thwart them anyway, not an issue. But what happens is that when they finally see that they are actually losing people in thousands, they also go into defense. By that time, the Chhatrapati knows that the passage is safe, and he comes back. And when this battle is going on, the Marathas at Vishalgarh also send him a lot of reinforcement. So he comes back with a reinforced troop. And before going, he had infused Baji Prabhu with some very patriotic words. And Baji Prabhu therefore says that he is the chosen of Shivaji and Ma Bhavani. That is, since they were staunch Hindu believers, Ma Bhavani, we also know her as Goddess Durga. She is the conqueror of all things evil, and she stands for fierce power and for good and light. He says that the chosen of Shivaji, Bhavani's swords, for you the gods prepare. So, Ma Bhavani, or the goddess, this fierce goddess who had conquered all demons, had given her sword to Baji Prabhu. So, can you imagine that at what level the commander was elevated to? And he says that we die indeed, but let us die with the high voiced assent of heaven to our country's claim enforced to freedom. That yes, if we have to die, we will die, but we know that we are dying for the cause of the mother, for our motherland, because one day our country will not be under any foreign forces. So basically, what happens here is that Sri Aurobindo is writing about a battle of the 17th century sitting in the 20th century. But what is common between both these things are that there is a native army that is fighting a foreign force. Because if you trace the Mughals back, they are from the clan of the Timurids, they say. Babur came from Central Asia. Then he came to Hindustan. He was there, he was the Padshah of Afghanistan, and then he came to Hindustan. So basically, the Mughals had a foreign origin. The English had a foreign origin. So this is where Sri Aurobindo draws a comparison and tries to infuse the people with a lot of patriotism, saying that if they could give up their lives, because India has forever been under foreign siege, be it the Turkish, be it the Mughals. Yes, after a while, from the reign of Shahanshah Akbar, what happened was that they started to imbibe Hindustani culture. Even Akbar took Hindu wives as well. But finally, they came from their roots were the foreigners. They were foreigners. So here Sri Aurobindo tries to give the example of such martyrs who had given up their lives for the sake of their motherland. And of course, he wants that even at the present time when he was writing, that the people should still think like that may the sun bestow light brightest upon the motherland. Even the sun was very scorching there. The sun was relentless, the sun was unforgiving, but the sun is actually the life-giving force. So one must be true to the motherland and not hesitate to give anything for the love of the motherland. Thank you.